teach you guys how to do the world's easiest painting. You don't even have to do any drawing beforehand if you don't want to. Here's one example. We're not going to use many colors. It's going to be really simple shapes. Here's another example. So let's get painting. I'm going to come into here and I'm going to start painting the tree. Now, I'm not actually painting the tree itself. I'm painting around the tree. So I'm negative painting the tree right now. So that's going to be a branch right there. I'm going to grab a bunch more color and paint and then come back into here. I'm going to bring this down. Now when you're working like this, you've got to go fast because the edges are going to start to dry on you pretty quickly. Change my color temperature up a little bit, come in here with a little bit more red. I'm not outlining things because if you outline things, you're going to find by the time you get back to here, things have started to dry on you. Oh, I forgot to check the paper. The Fabriano's upside down. Oops. That happens sometimes. That's okay. So, see how I'm going pretty quickly with this? Just dropping a lot of color, a lot of water, and then I'm going to let that sit for a second. All right, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over to this section here. That is our little branch. It's going to go off to another little branch right there. There's our tree trunk. You can't see it because I'm not actually painting the tree trunk. I'm painting around the tree trunk, so I'm negative painting. And I'll grab some more color. Let's go back to a little bit of that more reddish color. And here's the other side of our tree trunk. We're going to have a branch that comes up that direction. And then we're going to bring this over here. Change up my color again, grab some more color. A lot of color, a lot of water. You can never have enough color or water. Made it a little bit greener now. Let's put some more red back into that. Always changing the color temperature. I'm never making it the same because that just kind of gets boring after a while. And we'll go grab some more of that green. And now we've got to finish up this little branch here. So I'm coming back into here, and this little branch is going to go up here. Remember, I'm not actually painting the branch, I'm painting around it. Negative painting. And now you've got a little tree sitting in the forest. Now I dried the painting with a hairdryer, and I threw a little bit of water on that before it happened just to get some spattering in the background. And you can see things did lighten up quite a bit. You've got the upside down Fabriano watermark up here, which is a complete accident. I usually don't try to do that. But that happened. So now what we're going to do is we're going to come in and we're going to paint more trees. Now what you have to understand about negative painting is the trees are already painted. They're already here. What we're going to do is we're going to paint around the trees to define the trees. It's a very backwards way of thinking, but I think it's really, really fun. So what we're going to do is I'm going to start right here, and we're going to make another little tree trunk, which is leaning in this direction. And this is going to be the right-hand side of the tree, and there's another branch that goes up there. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to come up here, and I'm going to fill this whole section in. Now, when you're working with layers, you got to be real careful not to go back and forth too much because that's what pulls off the color that's underneath it. And that's what starts to make mud for you. So fill that section in, and now this branch is going to go behind that tree. It starts to create a sense of hierarchy. It tells you what's foreground, middle ground, background. This branch now, or this trunk here on the other side, it's going to be leaning that way. We're going to make another big branch right in here. And then what I have to do is I have to fill that whole section in. I'm not changing color as much this time because there's already a lot of different variants in colors on the first layer. So on the second and third layer, you don't have to do it as much because watercolor is transparent. It shows, all this other stuff shows through. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to make another little tree over here too. This is going to be a little birch tree, so it's pretty much just going straight up. It's not going to have branches. And it will be, and that's the other side of it. Grab more color. See how much color these brushes hold? They're fantastic. Come in here a little bit, put a little bit more color into it. And then I've got to go back to the other tree, the first one I started working on. I don't like that branch shape. I'm just going to go over that and paint over that real quick. Now we're going to come into here and do a little branch that goes that direction. Here's the tree trunk. And if you have a tree trunk that goes behind something, to get a sense of hierarchy, what's foreground, middle ground, background, have it pop out the other side. So now I'm going to come to this side. I'm going to paint around that tree trunk, which is now going behind our other tree. And then I'm going to do the same thing over here. This little branch, it's going to come up this direction. But I'm not painting the branch, I'm painting around it. And I got to come back into here, keep my hand out of wet paint. That's the hardest part about painting sometimes. You can't stick your hand into wet paint. Or you shouldn't. Yeah, let's make that branch go off to a couple spots. So now what we have is we have 3 trees in a forest. Foreground, this is the middle ground, and that's going to end up being the background. Now I do have some big water puddles here because I'm using a really juicy brush. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to rinse off another brush, and I'm going to come in here. It's going to be a thirsty brush, so the brush is a little bit drier than the paper. And if it's a thirsty brush, what it does is it wicks up the color as opposed to putting it down. And I used a hair dryer, and I dried this side over here. You can see it's not glistening wet anymore. Now, what's really fun about this technique too is you can start working with positive and negative space. So we've been negative painting the entire time to define these trees. We've been painting around the trees, and that defines the tree. What you can do now is you can kind of switch and go back to some positive painting. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here, I'm going to grab a smaller brush so I'm not flinging as much color anymore. I don't need as much color. I'm using the same combination of colors. I've got some red, I've got some sap green, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to come into here and I'm going to positive paint some trees in the background. So here is a tree trunk that I'm actually painting the trunk right now, and it's going to come up to about here. It is going to continue up that direction, and then it's going to branch off behind this tree. And branch off a little bit more here too. When I get into like the tiny branches, I have to switch to a smaller brush. I can't do that with the big brushes. Let's make this a little bit bigger. And let me grab my other smaller brush. This is a rigger I like to use for more detail. And I'm going to come into here and trying to keep my hand out of wet paint and do some more branches. And I'm making these go behind the trees, so now I'm positive painting these guys. I want to make another little branch over here while everything's still wet. I can do that very easily. Just come in here and add that to it. But I hope you can see how wet this is and how much water and color I'm using. It gives you a lot of time to play around with what you're doing. But if the paint dries on you, you can't do a whole lot. Now I put another tree into there. So now we have foreground, middle ground, background. And I'm going to use a smaller brush again for just a few minutes. I'm going to come back into here. I'm going to put a smaller tree back here. This guy is just pretty much just going up like this. I'll do a little branch here. Got to grab some more color. I was getting a little bit low there. But I've got a giant puddle of color ready to go on my palette. Let's make this guy a little bit thicker down here. And I'm going to turn this just a little bit here. Or actually, I'm going to turn myself a little bit. Get some smaller shapes for branches and things. Grab some more color, make that a little bit thicker down there. And go back to, I'm going to go my number 6 brush. I always have a bunch of brushes ready to go because I don't want to have to be looking for them while things are drying. And another branch, another tree, trunk, sorry, that's over here. And this guy's going to split off and go behind this tree trunk to make that come forward. And this branch is going to continue through here. I'm going to go back to this trunk right here. We're going to have this guy has a big knob there. And I could do some smaller branches too. I'm going to grab my rigger brush for the smaller branches. And that side is pretty much done. Now what I want to do is I want to get back into this side a little bit. I haven't put any trees over here. I've got basically 3 layers of trees here. I did that by negative painting and then positive painting. So on this side, I could continue to do some more negative painting, or I could just positive paint. You can go back and forth between the two. And when I say negative paint, you don't have to swear. I mean, it's not like you're thinking negatively. We're just not actually painting the object to define the object, which I know is backwards thinking for a lot of people, but to me it makes sense. Okay, let's come into here and let's put this little, this tree needs a friend, as Bob would say. Lean in that direction. So then it's going to come back behind here. And let's put a little trunk. Trunk extends over to this section here. And make a branch there. Bring that trunk up there a little bit. There's all kinds of little branches going through this little thing. Got to switch to my smaller brush so I get some smaller shapes. Make that come down there. Grab my bigger brush again, and I'm going to grab some more green. When you're making things darker, you want to use more paint, less water. If you've got things too watery, you're not going to be able to get dark. Okay, so here's another little tree right here. Alright, this guy's got another little branch going off that direction. Don't like that, I'll make that a little bit bigger. And what I'm going to do now also is I'm going to grab my small brush again, and then we're going to have some branches coming out of here from just random trees on the other side too. I don't know where that's coming from, but it doesn't matter. It's a forest. Yeah, I don't like that. You could dab off some if you don't like it. Just get rid of it. I'll turn this sideways for just a quick second so I can get a little bit more detailing into here. Take off a little bit if you don't like it. While it's wet, you can pretty much get it off the paper. Let's pick another little tree here. Let's grab a different brush, bigger brush. You gotta have the right brush, people. I just did the wrong size brush. That'll go right there, and then there'll be some branches over here. I'm gonna grab some thicker paint, less water. I'm gonna make this branch a little darker so it comes forward. And then I'm going to do the same thing into here. This is coming from another tree we can't see right now. And that is pretty much what I'm going to do right there. So we've got a nice little forest scene. I'm really only using a green and a red. I think I'm using Rose of Ultramarine by Daniel Smith, and it's Sap Green by Holbein. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to dry this, and then we're going to go to the last stage where we're going to, right now this is just floating in space. You got to have a source of light. So what we're going to do is we're going to put the source of light into it, and then we're going to finish it and call it done and do a little bit of spattering to the foreground. So this is, I think, the world's easiest painting. I used a hairdryer and I dried the rest of the painting, and then what we have to do is we have to come into here and we have to put a shadow of some sort. You've always got to have a light source, especially we live on planet Earth. There's only one sun, people. This is not Tatooine. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take a little bit of some blue. I haven't used blue in this painting, but there actually is some blue in that green, so it works out okay. And I'm going to make like a shadow color on the palette. I'm going to have the light source coming from the right-hand side. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to come into here, and I'm going to put a little bit of a darker shadow on the tree. And when you're working with trees, you just have to remember that they're knobby. They're not perfect cylinders. So it doesn't have to be perfect. Put some blue there. You've got to get blue on all the little branches. There'd be some blue over here because that's where the shadow is going to lay. And I'm just starting at the top, making my way down here. Again, it's not perfectly round. There's lots of little knobs and things. I can touch that a little bit if I want to. I'm bringing this up in here, do a little bit. Paper is curling on me a little bit because it's so wet right now, but that's okay. So remember, light source is coming from the right-hand side. And getting down into here. Now we're getting into the big trunk area. And we're putting in that shadow. And it's going to come down a little bit below the horizon line here. Let's get rid of that right there. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to rinse off the brush. Tap it off with my paper towel so it's not too wet. Come in here with just a little bit of water. Touch this, let this touch and kiss. I don't have all hard edges there. So we're just coming in, letting it kiss with water. And then what I have to also do is, if you've got a shadow over here, you got to have a shadow of the tree somewhere else too. What I'm going to do is I'm going to come down in here now, and I'm going to start dragging this shadow out. I'm going to rinse the brush, come back with just mostly water, because the shadow will get a little bit lighter the further away it gets. If it's too uniform, too much of the same thing, use a paper towel, just dab off a couple sections of it. And then the final thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take some of this color. I got to turn this sideways just a quick second. Do a little bit of spattering into the foreground. Makes it look like that's the foreground. And I'm going to do a couple little grasses sticking out here. I'm going to dry off the brush a little bit on my paper towel, and I'm going to do a couple just dry brush marks. A few more grasses here. And let me step up and just take a quick look at this. I'm going to call that done. And thank you very much, and happy painting.